Hello and welcome to another episode of Recapping with Cam. My name's Cam. I highly doubt you've just typed in the word recapping into Spotify and just seeing what comes up. But if that's happened and now you're like, oh, what is this? The premise of this show is that I have a podcast and it gives me an excuse to interview whoever I want or talk about kind of whatever I feel like. Hopefully it's mostly lighthearted. But I guess I'm not saying no, you're not allowed to talk about sad things. Like, they can come up naturally, but I'm not here going, the purpose of this is recapping sad things. So if you typed recapping into Spotify and you're like, I was hoping that somebody would summarize some kind of heartbreaking events, you're going to have to find another podcast. I recently watched a thriller on Netflix. What's it called? It was called Sweet River. It's about, I realized after that whole intro about not doing stuff about sad things. This thriller is about a mother who's lost her son and is on the hunt for him. Well, she's actually on the hunt for his body. I shouldn't be laughing, but it was just, I didn't remember that that's the first thing I was going to talk about. And now, yes, this is a podcast where I summarize sad things, I guess. I've just had to eat my words. It's called Sweet River. If you like horrors and thrillers, then I think you'll really like it. There's a couple of standout characters for me that made me laugh. I think it's always a good sign when a horror movie still manages to either tell a story that is, even without ghosts, a great story. There's another one on Netflix called His House at the moment, which is about refugees moving into their first house in England. That's great because it does that really well. But something that Sweet River does well, two things that are great, show the mum grieving and trying to deal with not wanting to let go of that grief. And then also it's got two hilarious characters that I don't know if they're meant to be comedic, but they are. There's a police officer who always has his shirt untucked and always has scraggly hair. He's always smoking a cigarette. He's the man. And then there's another guy that they show the mum chatting to. He was a bus driver, and he accidentally, I'm about to spoil it. Okay. So if you love thrillers and you're open to the idea of watching Sweet River, then I say skip past this maybe first 3 minutes of this whole episode. So I reckon I'll be done in 50 seconds talking about it. Anyway, so number one character that I love is the schlubby police officer. Number two is a guy who's massive, that mixture that kind of bikies and dads have of their body is huge, but it's like the muscle and the fat have become one sort of pink blubbery meat / muscle mixed with fat inside underneath their skin. So even though they just get bigger and bigger, it's strength as well as flubber. So this guy, he's got a big beard, he's got tattoos and a singlet on, and the mum is talking to him about trying to get him to jog his memory about when he drove a bus into a lake. But the thing that I loved about that scene the most, and if you've watched it, send me a message about it. If you look on his coffee table, so this huge, tough bus driver is telling a story about when he crashed the bus, but look on his coffee table at what he's just been eating. He's been eating, there's a jar of peanut butter with a spoon just rammed in it, like she caught him mid-snack. And then if you look at the other end of the coffee table, same setup, a spoon jammed into apricot jam jar. And that's not the meal I thought that a dude like that would be eating. There's an empty cereal bowl in the middle. So if we're going to assume that all three of them were part of the same meal, maybe it's quite a wide table, but he's got a good, his arm's length could probably get all three things. So a bite of peanut butter, bite of apricot jam, and then a mouthful of cereal. I guess that's the order that he would be doing it. Apart from that, still good movie, but if you watch Sweet River, that's the main part to look out for. The big bus driver's eating habits. My friend Ash has COVID-19 and she's had it for ages, and it's still in her body, but it's not infecting people. So it's something that's called long COVID. And I don't think I've spoke to anyone in real life or in like on the internet. I don't think I've spoken to anybody who has coronavirus. So I thought it'd be interesting to have a chat with her. Welcome to the show, Ash. You have got COVID-19. I think that I can say that you're probably the first person, well, the only person that's known they have it that's been on this podcast. So welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here in that circumstance. Bit weird.
How long have you had it? Because you've got a version of it that lasts for ages. Can you tell me about?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I've got COVID. Like I am officially recovered from it. But this new thing has come about called long COVID, which people are just starting to learn about and find out about. So, so I had COVID back in March, end of March, was cleared early April, and then 8 months on, now have long COVID symptoms. So I did have it first.
And what are the symptoms?
Well, when I had COVID, when I tested positive, I lost my smell and taste. That was it. I just travelled back from London and I tested positive 3 days after I arrived, and like I was pretty jet lagged as well. I was quite tired, but I put that down to jet lag, but I think maybe that was part of it as well. So at the time, smell and taste were my only symptoms. And then now 8 months on, I still can't smell properly. And I've also got fatigue, headaches, and fever are the main things that I notice.
Yeah. Yeah, rough. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess it's kind of a new sickness, but has the doctor said, okay, you've probably got a couple more months of this and then you're back to normal, or have they given you anything like a timeline?
No, I mean, they just don't know. We're learning as much about it as they are at the same time. Like, what I found more helpful perhaps than going to the doctor is this long COVID group on Facebook. So everyone pretty much just like blasts their symptoms and then like a couple of hundred people will be like, yeah, I've got that as well.
Oh, wow.
It's a bit more validating, I guess. Yeah, being part of that group. Like, because I think there's still a lot of people that don't really get it, or like, oh yeah, you're just tired. Like, it's not just tired. I've been tired before. This is different. You know.
Do some people not really believe that you've got it?
Well, I think they just don't really understand. Like, I'll go home and have a nap after work or whatever. Like, I'll do that instead of hanging out with someone. I'll be like, oh, I just want to go home and have a nap. And I don't think, like, my friends are great. Like, they'd never be like, oh, just get over it. But I just don't think they really understand, you know? Yeah. It's weird.
Interesting. I know that doctors like to make fun of Google. They're always like, oh, did you check Dr. Google? But I feel like the way you're finding out in a Facebook group of other long COVID sufferers, I feel like doctors are going to have to be like, okay, well, maybe that is a helpful tool to like get an understanding of what the symptoms are.
Yeah, they're going to have to listen to people, I think. And my doctor's been great. Like, I've seen her a few times since I've been back now. And I know there's not really anything she can do at the moment because there's no cure for chronic fatigue. And I definitely don't have chronic fatigue, just got fatigue, if that's a medical term. But, I'm talking to her about what I'm still experiencing, just not because I think she can do anything, but I think it's just good to have it on record. Like, to have a record of these things. It's just so small in New Zealand. Like, there's not a whole lot of people coming to her saying, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. Like, I'm her only client as far as client. Is that what you call it?
Fancy.
As far as I know. That she's treating with COVID. So, yeah, she's been supportive, but at the same time, she's like, don't really know what I can do.
And at what point, like, I guess since you've moved from having normal COVID into long COVID, am I assuming correctly that it means you're not contagious?
Yes, that's the understanding out there. So I don't know. I kind of stopped Googling and researching everything. I kind of just follow this group now. But my sister said that doctors in the UK have said you're pretty much contagious just for that couple of weeks. That that you have it and to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a relief teacher at the moment, so I'm sort of teaching all over the place. If I was still contagious, I'd be like a super spreader in Wellington. It's just like I was really worried about that even before I left. I was considering staying with mum and dad for my isolation period because I knew I had to isolate coming from overseas.
Yeah.
And my sister phoned me later and she's like, Ashley, you can't stay with mum and dad. Like, my dad's not well, you'll make him sick. Like, if you've got it, you just don't know. Like, I didn't know at the time that I had it. So even like after I was cleared by the doctor, I was still nervous to go to see mum and dad because I was like, what if it's still lingering or
and especially
something?
doctor, I'm imagining the doctor probably says things like, oh, some of that we don't know. So even the doctor saying, yeah, keep going to your job with kids, hang out with whoever you want. Still part of your brain must be like, but should I?
I know. Well, initially, definitely to begin with, but I don't know if this is medically correct either, but I just think I wasn't contagious at all because like I had it so mild at the time. All I had was losing smell and taste, but I traveled back from London with a friend and we were isolating together. Like it was just us in her parents' place. They were staying with friends around the corner. Mm-hmm. She didn't get it the whole time. So we were not careful as well. We were like, you know, hugging each other, crying on each other, like sharing a big bag of M&Ms, like hand to mouth constantly. Like we were not careful. So if I was even slightly contagious, she would have got it, but she didn't. And she tested the same time as me. So
when you think back in your memories of like the week before you got tested and found out about it, are there certain people that you can remember looking at and being like, oh, a little bit grubby? Like, is there somebody that comes to mind that you think was the patient that passed it?
Even if I did, I wouldn't say. No, I mean, no. I was in London, so it was still like the social distancing rule was in place, but it wasn't enforced and it was still pretty much life as normal over there. Our office was reduced. Lots of people were working from home. There were only about 15 of us at the time because I was working till the day before I left. Like buses were still packed. I do remember like maybe 3 or 4 days before I left, I was on a bus and I like coughed into my elbow and the guy next to me got up and like moved away from me.
He knew.
And no one sat next to me after that. And it's the first time in my life that I felt like shunned by society. Which maybe everyone should experience that at some point, you know, so you can then be empathetic towards other people. But yeah, like maybe I had it then, but coughing wasn't one of the symptoms. Like, it wasn't even a cough. It was like
like you're about to say something to him. He was like,
just clearing my throat. Yeah, that was interesting. And
has
then
it
must have been about a week later I tested positive.
Yeah. So do you think it was around that time when you were on that bus? Does it feel like it would have been like?
I definitely had it in London because I remembered about a week after I tested positive, I was like, oh, when we were leaving Gatwick Airport, I sprayed perfume on me and I couldn't smell it. And at that time, I didn't think anything of it because I didn't even think of it as a symptom. And then I could like taste food on the flight and stuff. So I didn't really fully go until the day I arrived back in New Zealand. So it definitely started in London.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What a scary thing to reflect on. And you've still got the no smell and you've currently got no taste as well. Does that change the types of foods that you're choosing? Like, are you choosing food based on texture now?
Well, I can taste now. I can smell slightly. Like if something's right under my nose, I can smell it. So I think that helps with the taste because I know if you lose your smell completely, you can't taste as well. So I think because I've got a little bit of smell, I can taste. But senses, those two senses are definitely dulled. Like I had a fruju ice block and it was like just really bland. I could barely taste it. And
was it a tropical snow or just a normal fruju?
Ice block, the fruju,
yeah.
Pineapple one.
Try the tropical snow is better.
And it is better.
And it has more flavor. I reckon have a try of that one and see if it's any different.
Yeah.
A lot of I've been obviously talking to a lot of my friends, especially in that March period, the world felt like it was about to implode. And I was speaking to our friend Mike, and both me and Mike were like, oh, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? And we both, for a little period, like a couple of weeks or so, kind of worked ourselves up into a whirlwind of worry. And
I can totally imagine.
we were on the phone thinking like, no, this is it. It's the end times. But one of the things that we both freaked out about, and we still separately have moments of freaking out about, is like, you just, even though him and I have never had it that we know of, just that constant worry and anxiousness of like catching it off someone becomes like an anxiousness of its own, maybe even scarier than having it. Do you feel like your ability to cope with the worry of now actually experiencing having it has changed? Or do you feel like now that you've experienced having it, you've still got a lingering anxiousness? Like, where has the anxious side of it landed for you?
I think before I knew I had it, I wasn't very anxious about it because I'm not unhealthy in general. Like, I don't have any autoimmune diseases or anything, like not asthmatic or anything like that. So I wasn't too worried about it back in March. Even like when we arrived in Wellington, my friend's parents picked us up and we like sort of waved and pretended to hug them from a distance, and then we were just talking about it and we were both like, yeah, we're determined not to get this. And then little did I know I actually had it at the time of saying that. So, and I think even when I tested positive, I wasn't very anxious because my symptoms were really mild and I didn't feel sick. And I was like, I was a bit worried that my smell and taste wouldn't come back, but not even 2 weeks later, they began to. So yeah, at the time I wasn't anxious. I'd say I'm maybe a little bit more anxious now with these other symptoms I didn't have at the time that are affecting me more. Like, I'm relieving, so I don't work full days now. Like, I don't have to do all the paperwork stuff that teachers do after the children leave. Like, I leave when the children do. And that allows me to go home and have a nap. Like, I never had to do that. I worked sort of 10, 11-hour days in London and it was fine. Like, I functioned perfectly well.
Yeah.
So the anxious thing and like part of me now is, how long is this going to last? Is it ever going to go? Like, I know people are saying like it could have long-term effects on your like internal organs, heart, lungs, kidneys, like kind of like I just don't know. It's the unknown. But I also try not to stress or worry about that because, I just try and take each day as it comes and not worry too much about the future.
That's a good mindset. And then vaccines, if they come out, will you grab one? And actually, is a vaccine the right thing since you've got it, or would you need something else?
No, I've been wondering about that. I don't know if it would help me. I know there's like now apparently different strains of COVID, so
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if it would help me or if I don't need it because I had it.
Yeah. What about people who believe it's a government conspiracy? Have some people who believe that tried to tell you that it is, and are you like, I've had
Not me personally. I have seen people on this long COVID group like rant about people that are like that. It doesn't tend to happen in New Zealand. I think it's more the States that these people like they're from the States, the people that are saying this. But I don't know, like everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I'm okay with that. But when it starts getting a bit aggressive and hurting other people, like that's when it's not okay. And I think sure, people can have these opinions, but it's literally affected millions of people. So you can't refute that. Like, how can you say something's not real when it's so evident in the whole world? I don't really get it.
No, fair enough. And then the other side of it is, I imagine, protective parents. Are there protective parents who are kind of like, why are you teaching? Like, are they concerned about the distance you're keeping from their kids? Is that an aspect of it?
I don't think so. To be honest, I don't know if all the families really know. I don't go around broadcasting it.
Yeah.
But then I was on this news show.
The Project, like a national TV show a couple of
No, I was on that last week and I let the association know that I'm working with, that I'm going to go on the show. They're like, it's your life, you can do that. they kind of I just thought they should know in case any of the families phone up, and be like, where is she taught? But
Yeah.
one family, when I went to work the next day, one of the children said to me, I saw you on the TV last night. It's the only one family that I know of saw it. I think people aren't really worried. I think they're more interested when I tell them, like, obviously I'm cleared. I've been cleared since April. Not a single person I've come into contact has shown any symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So when I sort of tell people that, I think they're a bit more reassured. But yeah, people just tend to be more interested, I think, than worried.
I'm glad for you that that's the case. I think that would be, I would hate it if people treated me like, oh, okay, cool, don't come over ever, then like.
Yeah. Back in April, maybe, like when people I'd tell, I'd sort of take a couple of steps back. I'm like, I'm fine now. Like, kind of as a joke, I think, but and then I'd maybe like edge a bit closer to me. But yeah, it's definitely different in New Zealand than it is in London.
Yeah, true. Okay, well, any advice to people about how to deal with it once you've got it? Is there anything that you've found has helped? So if somebody catches it, how should they kind of manage their symptoms? Have you found any ways that work for you?
I mean, the current symptoms I have, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say probably just don't care too much about what other people think. Like, if you need some time out, do it. I'm a bit of an introvert anyway, so I quite like my alone time, and this somewhat of an excuse. But yeah, like, be kind to yourself. Don't push yourself too hard. Like, I've tried exercising and kind of thinking of a different career change into something that's a lot more physical, and I've started training for that, and I've just, like, I'm not ready, and that was a bit disheartening at first, but now I'm kind of like, I need to just listen to my body and maybe wait a bit. Like, I'm still confident that I'll get to that point in the future, but yeah, trying to just be a bit kinder to myself now and not not beat myself up a bit too much about it.
Even aside from COVID, I think that's great advice, actually, to just kind of listen to what your body's telling you and just let yourself recharge. Am I allowed to ask what the other career path is that you're kind of looking at?
I want to be a firefighter.
Awesome.
Yeah. So obviously a very physical job. I actually went to a open day about it all yesterday, and like lots of information, and then you get to try some of the physical stuff that you have to do in the test, and I literally couldn't do some of them, like physically couldn't do it. And then I came home and I was just exhausted. I had to have a nap. I had a headache all afternoon. And then I went out last night, and I think my body just, like, I ended up like being sick. I wasn't like, I don't get sick often, but I think my body was just like, it's been too much today. Like, yeah. So that was, it's a bit stink, but I'm still just going to try and like ease myself into the training now, and maybe not try and do it in March, but maybe later in the year or in a year's time or something.
Oh, awesome. Well, all the best with that.
Thanks.
And thanks for coming on my show. I know that you were on a nationwide TV show a week ago. So I appreciate the fact you went from that to this humble podcast with no premise.
I'm happy to do anything and everything. I'm not exclusive.
Thank you for listening to Recapping with Cam. It's about to be Christmas time, and it's probably the most messed up year to be having a Christmas. Maybe they should have thought about cancelling it. I'm sort of not trapped, but I'm not going to really probably fly anywhere for Christmas, and there's a lot of people probably in the same boat. And I just think that as your life progresses on, Christmas becomes a bit worse each time. I don't know many people where it's like, and every year Christmas gets better. Like, imagine if it did though, because I remember when I was 5, I loved it. Like that's such a exciting feeling of knowing there's going to be presents and you're going to hang out with your nana and granddad. But if you kept moving, if every year got more exciting than that, I think adults would probably be too positive. We'd be too happy. So yes, I guess it's a good thing that Christmas gets worse as time goes on, but whatever you're doing for it, and as daunting as it might be to be hanging out with people if you don't enjoy your family, I wish you all the best. Sounds like I'm breaking up with you. I'm not breaking up with you. I just think do whatever feels good in December. That's how I avoid saying Merry Christmas. Someone will come to me and say Merry Christmas, Cam, and I'll say all the best to you. Do whatever feels good this month, and then they'll be confused, and I'll be like, no, I'm just not ascribing to any particular religion.